Welcome to the Firehouse Roundtable podcast, brought to you by the Ventura Fire Foundation. I'm one of your hosts, Peter McKenzie, retired fire captain with the City of Ventura Fire Department, and my co-host, Jason Kay, active battalion chief with the City of Ventura Fire Department. We are going to bring awareness to real issues that face firefighters and their families. We want you to feel like you have a seat at the kitchen table, which every firefighter knows is the heart of the firehouse. Let's get right into the episode.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Firehouse Roundtable. I have guest host with me today, new board member and past guest of the show, John Ellis, to help me out today. Peter McKenzie had other responsibilities to take care of. I'm glad you're on with me today, John.
Thanks for having me, Jay. It's cool. It's cool to be here.
Yeah, I'm stoked. I'm hoping to do some more podcasts with other people and just kind of get our new members more involved in the show and more involved in things that we're doing. This couple weeks ago, we took on a few new members, and you'll see their faces and names on our social media and kind of stuff around town that we're involved in. So we're excited to forge forward and keep going with the foundation and what we're here for. And today, our guests are Vaughn and Connor Fenwick. And they're a couple guys, if you remember, what was it, maybe 6-8 months ago, we had our last podcast of guys who had just gotten off probation. And these are another couple guys who are now off probation. And I wanted to get an intro on who they are, where they came from. I believe both you guys are laterals, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Cool. So, Ryan, why don't we start with you? Just give me a quick bio about yourself, where you came from, who you are, what brought you to Ventura City.
Yeah, my name is Ryan Vaughn. I'm 40 years old. Right now I'm living in Thousand Oaks with my wife, Kelly, and 3 boys. It's a busy, hectic household. But I grew up in the Antelope Valley area, kind of by Taylor Lyons, this little place called Lake Elizabeth. So pretty much nothing around there, but kind of as like why I want to be a firefighter. There was an LA County firefighter up in the area that on his days off, he would do a lot of like bulldozer work. So I would hop on the tractor, like while he was grading the hillsides and stuff. And he just brought me over to the firehouse and let me, squirt the fire hose and stuff like that. And kind of gave me my first, that or being a baseball player. So it's kind of a crazy story, but when I was 17, I was stabbed. I was picked up by LA County again and airlifted to Holy Cross Trauma Center. En route going to the hospital, the firefighter in the back was pretty much helping me stay focused, keep me alive, and everything that he was doing, starting IVs. That kind of just gave me a jolt on wanting to be a firefighter. So I was still pretty young. I was 18 at the time. And I was like, I didn't really have a direction on where or how to go about it, but I had a buddy that wanted to join the Navy. So I was like, hey, I'll go. I want to be a firefighter in the Navy. So I went to the recruiter's office, did my ASVAB, and I became a welder pretty much, not a fireman. I did 6 years in the Navy, knowing that I wanted to get out and pursue my career as a firefighter. So I got out, went to Antelope Valley Fire Academy, also EMT school with Taylor Lyons in the Antelope Valley. Yeah, that was pretty cool. After that, pretty much just put my finger on a map because I want to be by the water and out of the Antelope Valley, as you all know why. So I just literally prayed and I put my finger on a map and it was San Luis Obispo. And I ended up becoming a reserve firefighter up there in Pismo Beach. And I worked on the ambulance. I went to paramedic school. I was a paramedic on the ambulance for about 7 years. And then I kind of got comfortable with that. I had a wife. We're divorced now at a time. I was raising my nephew and I was like, this is the time for me to like spread my wings and actually go for that career path again. So I got a job at CAL FIRE and I was making that commute from San Luis Obispo all the way down to Riverside, which is absolutely insane. But I ended up moving a little bit closer to Ventura, and I lived off of Foothill. I think Rocky lived literally in the same apartment that I lived in. So,
did you guys know each other back then?
No.
That's a crazy story. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
So yeah, I met my wife on Bumble, and we sped things up pretty quick since it was COVID. And I was making that commute to Riverside from Thousand Oaks, and just like long-term wise, like I just knew it was not going to work out. Obviously everybody knows Cal Fire with the long shifts and stuff like that. And just that commute for 20, 30 years is not really mentally capable of doing that. So my wife and I discussed just, putting some time in with Cal Fire and then maybe lateraling somewhere else. I think she told me that Ventura City was hiring. And so I pretty much applied and got an interview right away. And that process went super quick and got that job. So
that's cool. How long you guys were in the academy together, right? Our lateral academy, Ryan and Connor.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been off probation at this point?
Let's see. So we hit our year in January. So like a year and like 4 months.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure, John, see what you think here, that we could do, I don't know, an hour on just what Ryan just said. Like there's so much in there, and I'm actually pretty stoked to be able to hear your story a little bit because there's a ton of stuff to go into in there. Are we seriously just going to skip over the part where you're like, "Oh, I was stabbed"? Can we start with that?
Yeah, so back in the day, like I used to, obviously do some high school party stuff. So we would be at one party and go to the next, and so we left one party to go to this gas station on M and 50th in Quartz Hill, just to fill up to go over the hill to Leno Valley. While we're getting gas, my buddies that were also filling up, they were all of a sudden, these like gangbanger type guys were walking up like, "What, are you talking crap?" sort of thing. And I was like looking around like, who are these guys talking to? Like, I have no idea who these guys were talking to. And then my buddy in my truck, because these guys just ran over and started fighting. Unprovoked, and then my buddy in my truck, I was like, his name was Fuzzy Nuts. So I was like, "Hey, Fuzzy Nuts, let's go help him out." He's like, "Oh, hell no." And then he just locked the door. So then I ran over there because it was like 3-on-2. And so after running over there, I pulled one guy off and we were just fighting. Next thing I felt was like warmth going down my leg and like a farting sound. It was just like, and then because I didn't even know I got stabbed, and I looked down and like my brand new Volcom shirt was like completely ripped, and I had like blood just going straight down. And at that time I knew I was like in trouble. So I ran away, and I just remember like waking up. He pretty much said, "Shut the hell up," in a way, and stomped my face in with his foot and lost a couple teeth here. I woke up again, and then everybody that was at that party that I was just at was standing all around me, just like kind of watching. Like, so I started yelling at them to call 911, and I guess I went out again, and next thing I saw was like my dad standing over me, a couple like off-duty AMR like paramedics like assessing me. And then there also saw like 2 helicopters with their spotlight kind of on me. And then they literally loaded me into an ambulance, drove me to like Joe Walker Middle School, and flew me to Holy Cross. And I just remember being super scared. I was doing some praying definitely on the way there, and just hoping like this is not how it ended. But all the pre-hospital care, like the AMR and LA County Fire, like definitely made me feel more relaxed and knew I had somebody good working on me. And so they pretty much flew me, to Holy Cross. I called my parents just in case, like that was like the last time I spoke with them, and also to get like kind of permission since I was 17. They pretty much did exploratory surgery. I guess my abdominal wall like rolled up almost like a window flap. And they just made sure like none of my organs were hit. I guess got pretty close to my spleen. So I pretty much cleaned my act up, like no more parties. And right after that, I joined the Navy like soon after that, and just to get away and, wanting to, just clean my act up a little bit. So that's about it.
So this guy's in prison for life now, and it was not because of what he did to you. Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. And all the threats and all that stuff is just kind of a thing in the past now. You don't have to deal with any of that anymore.
Yeah. It's when I was 17. I'm 40 now. So
wow. What a crazy story. I kind of just
moved away from that place. And besides like getting reacquainted after getting out of the service, I just moved back to like where I knew. And after that, I just knew I had to get out of the valley again. As much schooling as possible. And I just lived in a trailer in Mojave. And
all right. How about Navy stuff? So 6 years in the Navy. Did you go overseas?
Yeah. So I did my boot camp in the Great Lakes. So that was interesting. I had no idea what to expect with that. It's kind of a shell shock with that. And then went through A school, which just gave me the foundation, how to become a welder, pipe fitter, even a little bit of carpentry and stuff, and a lot of tin work. They shipped me off to San Diego. They asked me like where I want to go. And I didn't want to go like too far away from home, since I was just like freshly 18 and I was so used to mom and dad's house, So I went down to San Diego for about 3 years, and I had 2 deployments with USS Germantown. It's a LSD 42. So we were pretty much a big school bus for Marines. Since I was like low in rank, everybody has to do their time. And so I pretty much cleaned up all those toilets would always clog, and it would just, all this back pressure would just explode and crap onto the ceiling. And
taught you to be a great probie, right? You knew how to clean the toilets early.
Yeah. Just told me to like shut up and do your job pretty much. And so like they'd wake you up at 2 a.m. to clean up all the heads that were filled with. So,
okay.
But it just motivated me to like make some rank, So I became E4, and I here and there did that, but more of like the welder. And I earned a spot with the like advanced welding school. So towards like the end of my 3 years in San Diego, I learned like all processes, pretty much mastered all processes of welding. And then my next duty station was in Sardinia, Italy, in La Maddalena. It's like this little island in the middle of nowhere, which was beautiful. Highly recommend it. If anybody wants to go on a vacation, go to La Maddalena or Sardinia. And lived out there for 3 years, and I was pretty much a welder, like any submarine. Where our ship was a subtender, the MRS Land. So it's an AS-39. Submarines would come. We'd have booms that drop down power, water, and we would just go repair whatever. Sometimes there was like some emergency repairs where they would fly me and a whole team of inspectors, pipe fitters, planners. One was to like Greece. The other was like in the Middle East, where the like USS Philadelphia got hit by a huge cargo ship and was dragged for miles. And the cargo ship had like no idea it was dragging a nuclear submarine behind it. And so we would have to they would send us and just repair the mast on that submarine. But yeah, it was one of the best times of my life. That's after getting out. Like, I wanted that brotherhood. They always talked about the fire service with the brotherhood, everybody having your back. And that's what the Navy was for me. So I just wanted to have a career path like that. So
yeah, classic recruiter story. I went in there to be a firefighter and I left and I was a welder.
Yeah.
Right. That's a classic military recruiter story. I mean, that's a great story. I'm gonna pause you there and head over to Connor for a minute, and then we'll go back to the Cal Fire and kind of compare and contrast the departments and the mandates. So, Connor, why don't you give us an intro on yourself, and you can start with what age you were stabbed at, and where your trauma facility transfer was, and how many years you did in the Navy. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead and tell us.
Slightly profoundly different background to Mr. Vaughn over here. My name's Connor, 30 years old. I was born and raised here in Ventura, third generation Venturan. Went to high school locally here, received a 4-year degree from UC Santa Cruz, and then was looking at career paths. Like most kids after college, when you graduate with a humanities degree, you're trying to figure out, now what the heck am I going to do? I was lucky. I came from a family who had a public service background. My dad was a longtime police officer in the Ventura area, and for Ventura City PD. So I saw just the sheer amount of pride he took in his work, and working and living in his hometown. Trying to do what he thought was right, make a difference, and become a role model in his community. So after I graduated college, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and he said, "Hey, well, you've worked as an ocean lifeguard since you were 16. You love that sort of thing. You've always played team sports. You seem to want the sort of lifestyle where you're able to not just do something, but be something." And he goes, "Let me put you in contact with a few of my firefighter friends." So before not too long, you're finishing your EMT, you're doing a fire academy, and interviewing up and down the state, trying to get your foot in the door. So I was lucky enough to get a few offers from a few departments, and ended up starting my career off at Rancho Cucamonga Fire Protection District. I got hired there just before I was 25, so right around the age of 24. Spent an amazing 4 years at Rancho, and my wife and I, my wife Sage, she's also a Ventura local. So while we very much enjoyed our experience at Rancho, an amazing department with amazing people, we wanted to just get back home. Ventura is one of those places that you take for granted when you're younger. You don't realize how cool it is to actually just grow up on the beach in a very relaxed community. And then come age 25, 26, 27, and you're spending months and months in Inland Empire heat, you start to appreciate, where you came from. And, all the signs started calling us back home. So while I was working full time, I put myself through paramedic school up in Victorville. That was a pretty fun year. In between working 8 days in a row between school, internship, and normal work, but all to get back home. So been with Ventura, about a year and 5 months now. So it just means more when you're working in the hometown, running calls on people whose families just trying to make an impact in your community. That's all it is.
That's pretty incredible to be able to start in one environment, one community that poured into you for years and your family for generations, and to be able to go out, spread your wings, and be like, you know what, I know where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah,
I think that's a gift. Yeah,
absolutely. And a lot of people tell me I'm, talking nonsense when I say it, but it actually does. It does play. It means a lot more when you're at work and you have your hometown department on your shoulder. And you're working in a place that has done so much for you and so much for your family. So, like I said, it only feels right to give back to where you're from, where you live, and just make the city better for everyone who's going to live here in the future, as it's done for me.
But I got to know, just to poke the bear, how is it that a cop, when you came to him for advice, said, "You know what, let me hook you up with some firemen"?
Oh, my dad's a smart man. He knew I was making the right career choice. He always says I would have been a terrible police officer anyways. I went to UC Santa Cruz, full of hippies and surfers. So he knew I was a little too relaxed to be a police officer anyways. So he was a smart man who steered me in the right direction.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
You have a lot of the same stories as John does, as far as wanting to be in Ventura so bad and living farther away, and then ended up coming back to Ventura to kind of do your career. I see a lot of your guys' same career path. And then in Ryan, I see a lot of that. Oh, I was going to commute for however many hours it was. And that sounds like John for a little while. Although John was, he was decided he was going to do it for 30 years, which is probably the second definition of insanity. So yeah, there's a lot of similarities. You guys are so different, Ryan and Connor, as far as how you found your way to the same department. I think that's one of the things that makes our department so special and cool, is there's somebody to relate to, because there's so many different paths to get to the fire service, to the same place. I worked with your dad for a while. How long has he been retired now, Connor?
So my dad, he retired roughly 12 years ago. So he retired out as assistant chief. He probably spent about 2 years, enjoying retirement. He decided to leave the country, moved abroad, lived in Europe for a number of years. Like I said, he was a smart man. My dad was a cop through and through. I believe he started when he was 19. So he couldn't quite, shake the itch off. So roughly, 3 years after retiring, and then started working as an investigator for LADA's office, although he's now fully retired. So I'm very happy for him. He's put in his time. But, when you find a career you love, it's never really feels like going to work. So I'm just happy for him that he got out happy and healthy, and he's fully enjoying his retirement now.
Yeah, that's cool. So why don't we start with you, kind of comparing, contrasting some of the stuff you saw at Rancho versus Ventura City. What schedule did you work over there? How close were you to the folks that you worked with over there? What was your deciding factor that I know you ended up wanting to be in Ventura? Was there anything else where you're like, man, this isn't the place for me? What brought you to Ventura besides just the love of the city too? So maybe all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So Rancho is relatively different. I'd say just the style in California. California fire departments in general are pretty unique. We have a very paramilitary style, very organized, very structured. Rancho is very much like that, a very organized, well-run, efficient paramilitary organization. We worked a 4-6 Kelly schedule, and it was an absolutely amazing department with very good people. Similar to Ventura City now, a lot of people who worked in Rancho or from around the area, born and raised in the area, took a lot of pride in their department, and it was a great place to work. You had a very long 1.5-year probation at Rancho Cucamonga, which with a very unique probationary style, very traditional, almost LA City style probation, where it's, hey, you will not open your mouth, you will not speak for 1.5 years. You're gonna, keep your your mouth shut and your ears open. You're gonna watch, learn, and train. And they come out with good products. Firefighters come out there very well trained and respectful and know how to properly do their job. And, there really wasn't any reason, be it schedule or department culture, that made me leave. It was just when you're working 100 miles from home, and with the 4-6 schedule, it doesn't allow you to, live in a different city that's, reasonably too far. So my wife, being a local girl, spending a number of summers in that 100-degree Inland Empire heat, she was ready to come home. And like I said, the most important factor is while I love working there, while I had great relationships with the guys there, when you're working in a city that isn't your own, it just felt like, this is a great career and it's an amazing job, but it's hard to emotionally connect and feel like you're actually doing something for a community, but in the end, it's not doing something for where you personally identify as your community. It's like you can take the Ventura and out of Ventura, but you can't. They'll always associate to that place. So that was my situation.
a lot of Ventura, I think Ventura can connect with what you just said, because we just happen to have a lot of guys, employees that live within the county. But just leaving any job, just to come, no matter where you live, to come to Ventura to work would be really hard, because you spent years pouring into this organization with people you loved, and they turned you into the professional you are. It's them who did that with your hard work.
Yeah.
Now that you're here and you're part of this family, was the juice worth the squeeze?
Hi, I'm Austin Folk, an engineer with the Ventura City Fire Department. I'm also on the board of the Ventura Fire Foundation, an organization that supports firefighters and their families. The foundation produces this podcast as part of our mission. I worked with the foundation because I was witness to the help that it was able to provide to my family. The foundation needs your help. First, please subscribe and rate this podcast on your podcast platform. This helps us get a higher ranking and more visibility for the show. Second, if you support the podcast and the foundation's work, please consider donating. Every dollar helps us support firefighters and their families. There's a link in the show notes, or you can donate through the website at www.venturafirefoundation.org. Thank you for listening.
So I do think there's a big difference between that probation that you mentioned and probably the probation that you had, especially because you were a lateral firefighter. I think our probation is a little bit different for laterals, especially as opposed to new hires. So I know your probation, I know who you were with for your probation, and there's a big emphasis on training. There's also a big emphasis on inclusion and feeling like you're having a good time. I don't know if Rancho Cucamonga, if it was so traditional that they didn't let you yeet snakes, but I know that that's a big deal in your life too.
Hey, I'm all about I'm all about community service. And no job is too dangerous or too small. I'll get it done.
So tell me about Rancho as far as did they transport? Did they have ALS? And give me like how many mandates a month did you get out there?
Yeah, so Rancho was an ALS department. I was fortunate enough to get hired as a firefighter EMT there. They had it was a 7-station department at the time. They've now recently built their 8th station. But they had a fantastic training program where 2 out of the 3 members of an engine were required to be paramedics. So Rancho had a unique philosophy where they wanted simply to hire the best person for the job based on their personality and their background, and then hire for character and then train them up. So they hired a lot of firefighter EMTs, and they had an amazing training program where as a firefighter EMT, they want to start prepping you for the next promotional steps, learning to become a paramedic, improving your EMS skills. So as a firefighter EMT, you would run all calls up until the point of treatment. You would be doing you're essentially a lead medic without being able to, perform any of the skills. And then once you got to those parts in your assessment, you would go over to your engineer or your captain, because the captains were medics and they love to work as medics, and they're always trying to get in there and steal medic skills away from firefighters or other medics working, and you would dictate your treatment to them. So it was a really efficient training program. So by the time I got to paramedic school, when you are compared to guys who've worked on ambulances or, just didn't work in a 911 setting, you came in miles ahead and just, already being able to perform a smooth assessment. It was just a matter of learning skills. Now, in terms of mandates at Rancho, with the 4-6 schedule, there wasn't too much of a mandate problem at the department. Sure, like any department in California, busy departments, guys get put out on injury, guys have personal lives, It's important to make sure that the home front is always first and foremost, and make sure the guys are doing okay. So if guys had emergencies, obviously people would get mandated to go into work. They did run a different mandate system. It was a constant running list. The difference between the 4-6 and the 4896 is with the 4-6 mandated, they just mandated differently. You can be mandated from home, and that just was culturally understood at the department. Like, hey, I'm number 1 on the list, even if I'm on a 4-day or 6-day. If I get that call from chief, you put down what you're doing and you're going into work. So that was definitely historically a cultural thing that had been established there. So no one really had a problem with it. So that's just how they ran the show.
about call volume? Similar, more or less?
I'd say just Rancho compared to Ventura. I think the population of Rancho Cucamonga is around 200,000, so roughly double the size of Ventura. It was very busy. I'd say 5 out of the 7 stations there were 13, 14, 15 plus calls a shift. So it was definitely a busy department.
Okay, cool. So a lot of the stuff you said is not just at the end there, but through what you just said is so different than the CAL FIRE culture and what CAL FIRE is all about. So my next question will be for Ryan to kind of compare and contrast and talk about CAL FIRE, just the differences in, it sounds like Rancho doesn't have to, and Ventura is the same way. You're not in this huge hiring, can't hire enough people all the time, where CAL FIRE is more like, man, we need people. We're always short. The mandates are just insane at CAL FIRE. You hear that over and over again. The shifts, I remember interviewing one of our CAL FIRE guys that works for us now, and he said something like, I've worked 27 days this month. And that's not by choice, man. So Ryan, get into that a little bit. What did you think about CAL FIRE, the culture, maybe some of the pride and the training? Kind of compare and contrast what Connor said, or just talk about CAL FIRE in those ways.
Yeah, CAL FIRE is definitely a different beast compared to a lot of other departments. Obviously, like one of the biggest fire departments maybe in the world. I'm not too sure, but yeah, I mean, CAL FIRE is it was good for me just to dive into to get that experience. It's a very, very busy, very, very busy department where you're just kind of a number. The call volume there it has some sleeper stations, but I would say most of the stations are fairly busy. I was at Station 7 in Menifee, which is pretty much a city that is big as it's just a whole nursing home community. So we had a lot of calls. Like our station, I think, would run or average like 30 calls a day we had a medic patrol and an engine.
What does a medic patrol do?
It's pretty much like the squad, but it has a 250 gallon tank on it with a real line.
2 fire medics work on it?
Yeah. So you had an engineer, which was pretty much the operator. And I was the paramedic. So he would do all the like on-scene reports, since an engineer is like a supervisor in CAL FIRE. So yeah, he would just drive me around and just assist me however I need it and just run just tons of calls. Like we would run, it was a tiered system. So we would run any Alpha, Bravos, or Charlies. The engine would run Deltas, and we would both run Echoes, which is pretty much a cardiac arrest, together.
How was the morale riding on a fire apparatus that went to 30
morale was definitely low. They did their best at trying to keep it positive for sure, but when you're understaffed and underpaid, there's definitely some griping going on. I personally tried to stay out of it. I try to always keep that positive attitude, because sometimes negativity in the workforce is like a cancer. It'll just eat your soul out. And no matter how good you have it, you could just, it could just eat you alive. So
totally.
One of the things the foundation is trying to do right now is to talk about resiliency a lot. And I think that's what John's kind of getting at too, is, and what Ryan is for sure, is instead of feeding into that negativity and how you can get into, you're just in this pit of muck, this is where you are. How do you keep positive with where you're at? And once you start going down that negative pain train, it only gets worse, and you just keep spiraling. You got to find your way out.
Yeah.
And some of the point of why I'm asking you guys the questions I'm asking is to hear, because I know you both are just for lack of a better word, happy people, and you like your job and you like where you're at. So I kind of look for insights into your brains for how to stay in that place, because you're both laterals. You've both come from, you have a significant time as firefighters. It's not like you're new hires. You're both, 5+ year, maybe 7+ year firefighters at this time, even though you're new with our department. So I like to talk about where that came from, how you stayed with that positive note to where you can change departments and kind of bring some of that with you. John, I interrupted you. You were going to say something there for a second.
That's just for the listeners. I've worked with Ryan a couple times, and I got to tell you, for someone who has such a, for any employee really, but Ryan specifically, for his amount of experience in uncomfortable situations, you never see this man complain, ever. It doesn't matter what's going on in the day and what's going to continue to happen for the next 72 hours. This guy is just a radiating beam of, we are where we want to be right now. And I think the way you describe your experience too in Cal Fire really pours into that, because you pretty much described some firefighters' greatest fears of being put on a fire apparatus that just goes to run, maybe not fires, maybe less stimulating medical aids.
So I'm going to tell you guys why I specifically wanted to have you guys on here, as well as just being, newer firefighters. And I try to interview all the guys who are getting off probation. And then I'll ask, John and I come from a different place now, which is still super weird that I'm not on a fire engine with you guys, and that I got promoted to battalion chief. I'm still figuring that part out. But John has worked with you guys. Now that we have squads in the department, he gets to work with you guys singularly, just one-on-one. And I know both you guys have worked with him, more than a handful of times. And that's cool that you guys are kind of getting to know each other right off the bat. And then at the end, I'm going to ask you guys each for something funny that happened or interesting that happened on probation or up until now with Ventura City with a crew that you like. And I'm going to steal Connor's story for sure. So I'll start with, Ryan, I met you at Made West. I think it was the first time I met you. I connected with you immediately because your story and my story are so alike, to where you have a few stepkids. You met your wife kind of later. You guys connected right away and you got tight right away. And I was like, man, I have that same story, to where my stepkids feel like my kids.
Oh yeah.
And you just invest your time. And nobody ever hears me call my stepkids. They're just my kids. They're part of my family. And I felt that from you right away too. So I was like, I connected with you on that. Connor, I haven't met you many times out of work situations. And that's just because I don't think we've ever actually been on the same shift.
Yeah. You can often find me looking for sea glass at sunset.
I was just going to say that.
That's me and
Nice.
Connor's connection. That's our connection. Yeah.
You guys see each other at the beach?
We love to pick sea glass together.
With oddly enough, with regularity. I have this thing I like to do, virtually after every 48-hour shift to decompress, and keep the main thing. And after a hard shift, and for the listeners, I actually don't know if they know this, but Ryan's actually my squad partner. So we're on the same shift. So everything I'm going through, he's going through. So after those rough nights or those emotionally draining calls or physically exhausting days, I like to, do the little things that remind me why I came here, why I came back home. That's drive to the beach, cup of coffee, and just go for a walk along the ocean just to decompress and just keep the main thing. And I see John a lot doing the same thing with his kids.
Yep.
So one of the first times I ever saw Ryan was on a video, and I'm sure every one of Ventura City firefighters has seen this and knows what I'm talking about. But true or false, you're not a huge fan of snakes. I'm sorry, Connor.
Oh,
Connor.
I love snakes.
Connor.
I love snakes, and I love all animals. This is the truth. No, it's actually the truth.
You say you love all animals, and me.
I'm going to say
meanwhile Ryan Vaughn is living in a farm.
I'm going to say good thing I'm alone in this room right now. because I actually love the snake calls. I actually think they're one of the funnest calls you can go on. It's just a change from the norm.
So there's a video of Connor. I'll make it quick, but you were pretty new, I think, right, on probation, and you had this huge rattlesnake, and the video was you catching the snake, it rattling like it was trying to kill all three of you guys at the same time, and you holding the snake locked elbow, locked shoulder, and a whatever 4 or 5 foot pole as far as you could away from you, and your captain goes, "Where are we going to release that thing?" You go, "I'm going to yeet this thing," and you struck it. And it went end over a fence up into the hillside. So that's where they don't let you yeet snakes in Rancho.
Oh no! Came from. I'd like to preface to the listeners of the pod. No snakes were harmed during the filming of that video. It slithered off just fine, but no, we had.
Well, I will say on top of that, we used to kill them all. So whatever you did with that thing was nicer than what we used to do and just chop their heads off. So,
oh man, yeah. See, I'm opposed. Hey, I'm a guest. I'm just a guest in their environment. You know, we built our houses here.
John, I'll let you talk. Is there anything you want to talk about as far as it is cool that we get to have guys that are actually partners on the squad together on the show today? I didn't even think of that till you brought it up. So that was cool. John, is there anything you want to talk about experience with these guys? And then we'll leave it to these two if they want to close with anything.
Yeah, I gotta say, still being a new guy in Ventura, you know, I feel like
perfect timing.
What I love about having these guys here, and I'll say this as humbly as possible, is having more of a senior fireman culture being injected into our department. I'm still a new guy here. We're all still new employees. But the kinds of people that are being injected aren't on the younger end of their life. They bring a little bit of other experiences. And the way that these guys lead the station, you can feel it just in the atmosphere. And it's super refreshing from both of these guys, thinking that this is a direction that's good. It's good for an organization. And you feel it with every comment. You feel it at the table. You feel it at the professionalism on calls. And that's something that doesn't get talked about a whole lot, but everyone in the room knows, especially when you feel an organization changing and big waves happening.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Good sentiment. I like that. Ryan, is there anything you want to talk about, a story you can think of or something, whether it's from CAL FIRE or Ventura City that you could tell me? Maybe something embarrassing about John. I'll take that all day long.
I guess I'll say something embarrassing about myself, since Austin Ariza, he's out there somewhere listening, and he probably wants me to name drop myself here. Yeah, just on a call, I was obviously, this was probably within my first couple months. It took me a while to kind of settle down and shake off the nerves. But there's like this kid with a seizure, mom is in distress. And I don't even know how exactly, I think Ariza's like kind of making it sound worse than what it was. But I pretty much said, "It's okay, mama," or something like along those lines. And then he was just like trying to hold in the laughs, like him and I forget who I was working with, but it was pretty much a little awkward moment that whenever I go to any other station, somebody just walks up to me and says, "It's okay, mama."
Oh, that's good. That a nickname will be formed for sure.
Oh, for sure.
How about you, Connor? You got one for us?
Apart from my viral snake video, I feel my time has been pretty smooth sailing here. I will say that Ryan Vaughn is an absolute hit in the over 70 plus nursing home communities. This man could charm a door. Oh yeah, and he is probably the favorite paramedic of the Ventura townhouse. I can absolutely assure you that.
Oh yeah,
nice. Well, look at that hair. I mean, how could you ever be upset at that?
He's a handsome man.
He's an ageless wonder.
I'm almost their age, so maybe that's why.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being here. Thanks for being on. It was a lot of fun. And I appreciate the wisdom that you guys bring to the department, kind of dovetailing off of what John said. And we look forward to what you guys offer the department.
Well, thanks for having us. Appreciate it. It's good talking about this stuff.
Yeah, thanks.
This is awesome. Thank you, guys.
It's great to be on the pod and have these conversations that just, normalize the fire service. A lot of people just, when they see an engine go by, they don't realize that those are just normal Venturans, normal people who have normal lives outside that department. So it's good to have these conversations and just, show people that we're just normal guys with a great job. That's all it is.
Well, that was a cool podcast. That was fun talking to Connor and Ryan about their history and where they came from. Anytime we have laterals on, as you know, Lateral John, it's fun to hear kind of their history and the differences and compare and contrast. I will say, too, I always give quotes in our little outros. But one of the things, Connor, man, that guy was a man of a bunch of quotes. He said, I think he said, my dad knew I wanted to not just do something, but be something. I wrote that down as a quote that I will steal and use again. And then the other one was what he said about Rancho. And he said, they hire for character and then train them up from there. That's a pretty good motto for most fire departments to follow, and maybe most companies in general to follow. So those quotes touched home for me. And then what a story Vaughn has as far as his upbringing, what he went through, just their differences to get to the same place were pretty fun to listen to.
They are both amazing humans. Yeah, hire for character, train for skill. Ryan is just a testament to character, to having adverse issues in his life that he's overcome, and he just moves forward. And when I think about him, I'm like, that is such a great human being to be surrounded by day and night and work. And Connor is just carrying the torch of his family. I love that. I love that he's here with great energy. And like you said, he's the man of quotes. He knows what he wants to be, and he's being that person.
Yeah, that was cool. What do we got coming up for the foundation? On September 7th is our stair climb. I believe this is the third annual stair climb that we're doing with the foundation. Every year it gets bigger, and not by a little bit, but like 50% bigger every year. It's going to be open again to the public as well as public safety members. So registration is open. VenturaFireFoundation.org. It'll be listed in our show notes too, and you can click on that link and register. Come suffer with us, man. It'll be a great event again this year. Have a great week, John. I'm glad you joined us. I'm sure you'll be joining us again for podcasts. I'm stoked you're here.
Thanks for having me, Jay. It was a blast. This is awesome.